What's up, guys? We are back for another installment of me opening some older Star Wars toys from the late 90s and early 2000s era, and today we're going to take a look at some droids and some dudes with weird heads. So in the droid department, we're going to go one from the Phantom Menace line and one from the older Power of the Force line. We've got a destroyer droid from the Phantom Menace line, a rather big figure. There's a lot of plastic in this particular package, and then we're going to take a look at R5-D4 with concealed missile launcher, because you know he had one of those in A New Hope. And then for our dudes, we have got Ki-Adi-Mundi, so you know, Jedi Master, Council member, all around weird looking fellow. And then from A New Hope, in the original Power of the Force line, we've got Garandan, the Imperial Spy, or as he's labeled here, Long Snoot. So let's pull these guys out and take a look. Alright guys, here they are out of the package. We've got our dudes here on the outside, Garandan and Ki-Adi-Mundi, and then we've got R5 and the destroyer droid here in the middle. So I'm going to take a look at the droids first, because they're actually the coolest of the bunch. R5 is just incredibly weird because of that missile aspect, and then we'll take a look at these guys. So as far as these two droids go, they are about as far apart as you can get without still being in the same product line. I mean, just look at them. They are entirely different. You can tell that, at least in terms of what they are, they come from two different eras. R5 definitely is the classic Star Wars A New Hope style type droid that we remember seeing with the Jawas, with Luke and Uncle Owen. Although he looks a little weird because of this paint application they gave him. He's got all this specked dirt all over him, but it's really, really weird looking. Honestly, it's kind of metallic-y, and it's almost silver. It's not really brown. It's not exactly a sand color. And then the destroyer droid here is just, you know, a whole different beast. You can see it's definitely taller. It, of course, has a lot more going on with it. And when it comes to articulation, these things are worlds apart. So R5 has kind of exactly what you'd expect. These legs can move, but they are one solid piece. So there's really only one point of articulation if you want to be real technical about it. The middle leg doesn't move, the head doesn't spin, nothing like that. But this guy actually has quite a bit going on. The legs can articulate at the ball, I guess. The ankles, knees can move on all of these legs. The arms can move up and down. The arms can move side to side, and then the head can bob and back and forth a little bit. So it's actually got quite a bit going on. That said, once you actually get him posed, you kind of need to have him set in a certain way, because if the legs are too far back, he'll kind of wobble and fall over. And of course, he doesn't turn into a ball or anything. There's just no way that's going to happen in this line. But that would have been really cool, obviously, to have a destroyer droid you could roll down the hallway or something and then transform into this guy. And even more so in the fact that they're so far apart in terms of what they offer. You saw on that card that this guy has a missile launcher thing. So it's just a gimmick, a 90s style gimmick. This guy doesn't do anything like that. Everything he has is in the paint and sculpt department. And honestly, as far as a 3 3/4 inch-ish scale figure goes, this guy's pretty solid. I'm a lot more happy than I expected to be, but we're going to put him aside for just a second, because like I said, this guy has a missile. You remember that, right? When he shoots the missiles at the Jawas and escapes and even lives a life of freedom or something like that. You can pop him apart, because why the hell not? And you can fire this missile. I probably just lost that. So you can close him up and he looks fine, but he's got this little yellow guy down here protruding out. These little pieces also move around. I'm not really sure why they need to do that, but you can move these. So I guess if you want to count that as 1.5 points of articulation almost. But he's actually a pretty cool figure. The only thing I really wish he didn't have was this speckled paint job. I wish it was brown instead of silvery. He would look a lot more like he came out of the sands of Tatooine rather than being sprayed with some sort of silver spray paint. And while the missile launcher is kind of goofy, and it is kind of fun at the same time. Next up, we've got our dudes with weird heads, and obviously these guys don't really have anything to do with each other, but they do have weird heads. So we've got Garandan, or as he's called on his card, Long Snoot. So he's the Imperial spy that tips off the Stormtroopers to Han and Luke as they escape from Mos Eisley. And then Ki-Adi-Mundi, you know, from the Phantom Menace and the prequels in general, and the Clone Wars, one of the Jedi Masters that sits on the Council. Star of many an internet meme as well. So these two are your standard figures in terms of this line. They do have pretty decent likenesses, though. All things considered, I think they look pretty good. We've got Garandan here with his long snout. We've got the goggles on there. He does have the cape, which is not removable. I suppose you could pop the head off and pull it off, but I don't know why you'd want to do that. And then he has his gun. He's got the sculpted communicator in his hand. They both have the same kind of articulation, but Garandan is a little bit more restrictive because he does have that very form-fitting cloak. So all things considered, I'd probably just leave him like that anyway. That's kind of what he needs to look like. Ki-Adi-Mundi looks pretty solid, all things considered. I do enjoy this particular look for him. He very much looks like a Jedi Master. He's got his kind of dark purple lightsaber, and his head is sculpted really nicely. The likeness on it is pretty good. I don't really have anything in the complaint department when it comes to this likeness. He is, again, just like I said, for Garandan, he is a standard figure, so I'll run through articulation for him just because he's pretty rough to do it on. Arms can swivel, head can rotate. They do both have waist twists. Garandan doesn't twist too well on mine. It just could be because of how old he is. And then they both have leg kicks. His is going to be a little restricted because he's got his skirt. Garandan's going to be restricted because he's got his cape. But, you know, there's not a whole lot to talk about with these two figures. They're pretty basic, but they both offer solid paint apps, solid sculpts, and the exact kind of articulation you would expect. Honestly, I'm a little more pleased with both of these figures than I had anticipated to be. Especially this guy, because I really don't care for him as a character, but he works pretty well. The only thing that I would say that I have a complaint about, if I was going to gripe, is that he's one of those figures that is posed in a certain way, so he's got one leg forward. So you got to have him in a certain pose all the time. But when you get him in there, he's just fine. And while they're not truly accessories in my eyes, they're extras that come with the Phantom Menace figures. They double as stands for some figures, and then they, of course, make sounds. So you've got the Comtech chips, we've got Ki-Adi-Mundis, and we've got the Destroyer droids here. Ki-Adi-Mundis, he says different lines, and then the Destroyer droid makes blaster sounds and explosions. I just don't have the Comtech reader to actually do anything with these anymore. So we've got those, but there's our spread of figures, guys, and honestly, this was a pretty good bunch for me to play around with. I do like the droids. The only thing that I really truly don't like is R5's paint job. I just think it's kind of a weird overspray that they gave him. And even that goofy missile, which I did find, works pretty well, and it's pretty cool once you open him up and you got all those sculpted doodads in there. So it's a weird 90s-esque kind of thing. But at the same time, it's fun, and if you're a kid, you know, that's something fun to play with. And the Destroyer droid is honestly a winner all around. I honestly kind of want to get another one now because I need more of those. So that's going to do it for this little quick look at a few older Star Wars figures. Again, let me know if there's anything from these lines that you want me in particular to take a look at. I'd be happy to open them up because I'm doing everything I got. So that's going to do it for this one. Let me know what you think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until next time, guys.